Today we're going to be talking about what we can observe about the plant's growth and development over time. So we'll be observing, looking closely.
I teach third grade students. I have 25 in my classroom, and then for science we have 28 because of the 3 inclusion students. The school has a diverse population. We really have the full range economically and culturally.
If we look at our class observation chart, already we've observed the stem, the seed leaves, the true leaves, and the buds.
Today's lesson fell about midway through the plants unit. So in the beginning, we start by dissecting a large seed so we can learn about the seed as a system and the parts and the function of the seed. And then we move on to planting our Wisconsin fast plants so that the kids can see all of the stages of the life cycle in a very short period of time, about 6 weeks. We go through a whole series of lessons studying bees and the bee system and the parts and the function of the bee. Right after this, we learn about the flower system and all of the parts and the function of those parts.
We left off with buds last time. What kind of predictions can we make about what we might see when we observe today?
We studied about change over time. And at this stage in the life cycle, students were going to observe flowers for the first time.
So you're going to talk to your partner about 2 things. You'll tell them, when I observe today, I predict I will see. And then you'll follow up your thinking with some evidence to support your idea. So you might want to say something like, I think this because.
The lesson starts out with engagement. We talk about a focused question that sets our purpose for the lesson. We activate their prior knowledge through a little bit of a discussion, and then the students made a prediction about what they thought they would observe.
Okay, go ahead and talk to your science partner.
What I think I would observe today is flowers because last time there's buds.
I predict that I will also see flowers, and I think this because it starts to change and change.
Usually when there's buds, they turn into flowers. I've seen lots of plants, and I've grown lots of plants, and buds always come before the flowers. At one point in a plant's life, the bud always opens.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a little taller too.
Yeah.
Okay, back to me in 3, 2, 1. We're going to go back to our table and do an observation on our plant today. As you're looking closely, you're going to be talking to your science partner about what you're noticing, focusing on the changes for today.
I noticed mine developed flowers, and the buds are getting bigger, and then there's some really small buds still. The bottom of the stem got darker.
During the active investigation, the students observed their plants. Their plants have been growing for 19 days.
Looks like it's kind of like about to sprout.
The students are looking for changes in old parts. They're looking for new parts that have developed, and they're really looking for details in all of those parts.
It looks like the buds, like their leaves, because they're starting to like peel off and stick out. So maybe those might be the leaves to the flower. Good idea. I think it's kind of like flowers about to escape. And I think it's going to be kind of a yellow flower.
We use talking a lot with science partners, and the reason why that's so important is because before they can put it down on paper, if they can talk to someone about it first, that gets them involved in looking carefully and observing.
I have 12 buds. Oh, 1, 2, 3.
So the observation process really starts with them looking.
I think there's 8 actually.
And then just explaining it to someone else before they go into the note-taking and the drawing.
I'd like for you to help me do a scientific drawing for our class plant. So starting from the bottom to the top, just like we do every time to stay organized, tell me, how many seed leaves do you see?
2.
2 seed leaves. I'm going to draw my straight stem, and just like we've done every time, my 2 seed leaves.
When I'm modeling the scientific drawings for them, I'm very specific about the fact that I'm looking very closely and then I'm drawing exactly what I see.
And I want to make sure I'm still looking closely to get my little heart shape. I have 6 true leaves and I'm looking for any changes.
By watching me and being part of the process themselves, I'm looking, they're telling me what they see, and that helps them internalize this process.
Just help me out. What's the difference in my edge?
The edges are jagged.
Jagged. So I need to make sure that my edge looks more jagged than on my seed leaves, which were smooth.
I do a lot of thinking aloud and explaining to them what scientists would be paying close attention to as they're observing.
6 yellow buds, they've really changed. 2 of those buds have actually developed and opened up. Does anybody think they know what they are?
Flowers.
How many people knew they were going to be flowers? How many people had that in their prediction today? Okay, so our new part, flowers. I'm going to add that to my list because every time I observe, I'm also checking to see information about the flowers.
They're developing the scientific skills of data collection, careful note-taking, scientific drawings, labeling, all of this done clearly and accurately with the idea that another scientist looking at their work would be able to interpret their data.
Connor, what do you think?
I think it looks kind of like some kind of green sticky thing sticking out in the middle.
What am I pointing to down here?
Stem.
Okay, and then these leaves are,
True leaves.
okay, and then someone tell me the heart-shaped leaves down below, Laszlo.
Seed leaves.
Okay, and the small yellow dots up at the top,
Buds.
buds. If I don't remember how to spell buds, where do I look?
Your chart.
It's right here. So if it's here, it needs to be spelled correctly on my labels, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We teach them to systematically observe the plant from bottom to top. We teach them to take notes in an organized way. They learn how to do measuring.
I'm measuring, and today my plant is 16 centimeters tall. 2 days ago, it was 15 centimeters. Tell the person next to you how much my plant has grown.
1 centimeter.
They're thinking carefully about size, color, texture, different numbers of parts, and this serves as an organizer for them to later write about it.
So maybe thinking about size, which one's bigger? Okay.
As they're collecting their data, I'm circulating and having one-on-one time with students to give them a little bit more talking time so that they can talk about what they're seeing, which is a support for helping them to get their observations out.
I can tell how closely you're looking. I see 3 tiny dots in the center of your flower.
My expectation is that all students will take their work to the next level, and so I will need to put something in place for each one of those students to be able to get themselves, with my help, to the next level, and that will look different for every student.
5
what?
centimeters.
We're gonna do our drawing. You're gonna follow my finger, okay?
Okay.
For example, we have a student who is able to look closely and talk about what he's seeing, but he has limited motion with his hand.
Good.
He's able to talk to his aide about what it is he's actually seeing, do the observation verbally, and then to get it on paper, she helps him by having him, with his pencil, follow her hand along the page. So he is able to do his own drawings based on what he observed.
This way up.
By using these strategies with him, we're able to capture his strong scientific thinking.
So please remember, as you're finishing up, you're using this as a checklist for the parts of your plants, but also please use this as a checklist, again, looking for color, texture, size, and number.
Students know that there are tools available to them when they need help. They can move around the classroom and find a word, or they can refer back to one of my charts. That's always there as a structure. And Often students self-monitor about what support they actually need, and they're able to start to develop input into which supports they'll rely upon.
Make sure that I say something about each part that's in my drawing.
The notes that they're taking and the drawings that they're doing are so important and are used later to talk about their plant in discussions and to write about their plant.
And then don't forget to add flowers.
And so this whole process helps them to construct this understanding of the life cycle over time.
Okay, thinking back to our focus question, what can we observe about the plant's growth and development over time? What did you actually observe?
I was thinking that the bud looked a little bigger, looked like pieces that were kind of breaking open. So it made me think that the flower's trying to get out of the bud.
During the shared reflection portion, when they're sharing out with me and with the whole class, we're going back and thinking carefully about what we observed, but then we're also layering on top of that, doing it in a way that a scientist would talk about it, practicing the language component, which again builds their writing abilities.
So who else observed something about buds or the transformation to flowers?
I'm able to check in and hear what they were thinking about, and then I'm also able to extract a little bit more and get them to go into a little bit more detail. And it tells me a lot about what they know and where they need to go.
Okay, Max, tell us what you noticed that you can add to this. Let's build on each other's ideas.
I noticed there's on mine, there's a kind of a black spot on the top of it.
I did see that little green stick thing sticking up, and then there's a little oval over
Okay, a
it.
line and a little oval on it.
On top.
On top.
I used the other lens on my microfilming glass, the really small one, and got really close and noticed that it looked kind of shiny and wet. The stick thing did. And the yellow things looked like they had little grains on them, forming that yellow clump thing.
I'm going to ask for you to just open up to what you observed and talk to your science partner about what you noticed. We already did this earlier, so this will just be quick to get our ideas ready for writing.
I had 9 buds.
The shared review time, it's a very quick discussion about what was learned as a means to get them ready to write about it.
We're going to look at what we observed today and do a written observation using our notes.
At this stage in the process, a shared writing mini lesson, I'm providing the structure of how to write about the information.
And our first section is all about the growth of the plant, and our second section is all about the parts that developed. So really, we're going back to our focus question, and we're thinking
I give them the general opening statement because often we find that if they have a blank page, it's very difficult to start.
on day 19, that's important information to know right off the start. I observed.
I'm giving them the tools that they'll need and the frames and the words and the scientific language.
This is the information that we'll need in this section.
And based on what they observed and what they're talking to each other about, they're providing me with the content.
How tall was the plant?
It was 16 centimeters.
16 centimeters tall.
In this case, the checklist for the first section, we were talking about specific content that needed to be in the piece.
I've written about it. Check it off. How much did it grow?
1 centimeter?
It grew 1 centimeter
Since day 17.
Did we write about how much it grew? Yes, we did. Check it off.
The students need these checklists because they haven't yet internalized all the components.
Now we need to communicate something about the speed of growth. What do you think, Damien?
It's growing slowly.
Growing slowly.
The goal is to eventually have them be able to do it without the checklists, but for now, this is helping to move them toward that place.
So this is a pretty short section, but it's got a lot of quantitative data in it. It's got a lot of numbers in it.
We find that all kids benefit from having some sort of organizational tool. So on one side we had different parts of the plant, and then on the other side we had a general checklist that provided them with sentence fluency, transition words.
I'm going to really think in this section about some sentence fluency using my transition words. So I can say, I noticed
that the stem at the top it was like pale green, and it seemed to have grown a lot.
pale green at the top.
I observed 2 seed leaves have gotten a little bit bigger, and they're dark green.
I love how Tessa included the words I observed, because it made it really clear that she was writing about her observation. And I'm going to add in a transition word also. Also, I observed.
This is an ongoing process, but eventually, probably by mid-3rd grade, students will have internalized the transition words, and then we'll give them a checklist for something new.
I want to introduce a new word to you, which is furthermore.
So we're always taking them to the next level in their writing and in their thinking.
And what it means is that it's, well, I'm taking my thinking one step further.
Furthermore, there are 2 tiny yellow flowers.
2 tiny yellow flowers.
By teaching them to take detailed notes, when they actually go to do the writing, it's already organized for them. And really all they have to do is follow along with the careful notes that they've taken, and that becomes the frame for their writing.
We're going to read this listening for the flow.
After we've done the shared writing, we read it over to hear it once more for flow.
I have observed changes in the parts of the plant. I noticed there is a straight stem with purple at the bottom and pale green at the top. Also, I observed 2 dark green seed leaves that were oval in shape.
Later, I remove what we've written together.
But I'll leave you with some help and support.
I take that away, and then they're left with the scaffold, which might have the general opening statement and some checklists.
You can start off on day 19. I observed that. And then you'll use your checklist.
During the independent writing, as the kids are working on their own, I'm circulating and checking in with them, and this is a really important time for me to keep in mind all of their individual needs.
On day 19, I observed that. What's the first thing? Tell me the first thing on your checklist.
And I'm holding in my mind where each child will probably need to go next.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I know that some students will really just need me to help them go back through that checklist. And some students will really need to just tell me their sentence out loud before they actually write it.
Tell me how you'll start.
On day 19, the plant was 13 centimeters tall.
And so when I approach one child, it's going to be very different from what I'll say to when I approach another child.
Okay, so what would you say?
My plant grew 14 centimeters.
This approach to teaching science and teaching writing is so effective, and one of my greatest joys in teaching this program is when I get to communicate with parents about what their students are doing, and I get to show the parents what their children are able to do.
That was really smart thinking.
I had the chance to sit with a student and her father in parent-teacher conference. Her father was choking back tears of pride when he saw what she was doing and working on, and he said to her, "You have so much that you will accomplish in your life, and when I look at your science notebook and I look at the work that you're doing, I know you're on your way."